Hello everybody, so let's just go ahead and jump into today's topics. So the question is asked, how will I instruct, culturally diverse or linguistic students in relation to my content? And I think the number one thing, to be said as far as that is that you need to make connections to the content to the students. And what I mean by that, it's a little confusing, but what I mean is as a world history teacher, which is usually what you're covering in middle school, 8th grade I had American history, so that as well. And you can still make connections with that. But as far as world history, there's such a wide range of what you can teach that you can make connections to the students and their specific culture. You can build on that and elaborate and then teach other students so those students can understand their culture as well. So as far as being a middle school social studies teacher, I think the biggest relation you can make is from your content to your students' culture, and you're blessed being able to do that because it's such a wide range of topics that you can go into and standards. And then as far as the specific videos to highlight, the first video, which was the ELL perspective student, I think that the one thing, and this would be very specific, but the student discusses like a specific strategy that she helped her to learn, understand English and the wording and help her reading. Is she stayed after school and they given her a text and they said you need to read it in a certain amount of time, and then she would read it, and she just kept doing that and kept drilling it in and drilling it in, and that was the way she kind of learned. And I think that it would be very specific, but you could do that with a student, and it would not only help their reading, but it would hit two content areas, because you could give them a text. If you wanted them to read a text, and you could translate it first and help them understand that, and then you could ask them to read that same text in English, and that would not only help with the history, in whatever text, whether it's you're covering the Aztecs and the Mayas, or if it's American history, you're covering the Civil War or World War II, you could help them learn not just the text and the content you want them to learn for your class, but you could also hit on the reading as well and help them begin to develop skills to understand what they're reading, and it'll help their English as well. And then as far as the second video, the student perspective, number one, the one thing, it was very simple, but I think what's very important, maybe as important as anything else, is to offer to meet with them one-on-one. Sometimes ELL students in the past, they can be more shy, as far as the ones that I went to school with, ELL students. Sometimes they just have a tick of being a little bit more shy because they're uncomfortable with their environment. They're not used to it. And I think offering to meet with them one-on-one, not only helps them feel more comfortable, but it gives them the freedom. It helps them feel free to share their opinions or things along that line. And then, building off that, you need to let students share, not necessarily the beliefs, but let them share their ideas on a topic. And even in the teacher perspective video, one of the teachers discussed, having information and wanting to say stuff, or not necessarily wanting to say stuff, but having information and knowledge, but just never really sharing it. And I think that is something that we often see, in ELL students. They're just a little bit more shy than the rest of the students. So give them those opportunities to meet one-on-one, so then they can feel more comfortable. And then as far as the student perspective, number two, the big thing was just slow down. Sometimes as teachers, we know the content so well, or we've taught it so many times, especially if you're a middle school teacher, that you get to go on really fast, and these students get sped up, and then they're not computing everything that you give them. So slow down and give them time to process what you're trying to teach. And then as for the student perspective, number three, it just kind of made me realize, open my eyes to the importance, especially in the time that we're going through, as to how important it is to give students easily accessible and very not basic as far as the options and everything else, but just easy to understand information online and over the internet. Because sometimes ELL students, they struggle enough in a classroom understanding. Well, then you put them without a teacher and looking at a computer, and that can be even more for them. So you need to give these students stuff that's easy to understand when they're doing online assignments, or they're in a time like we are right now where they need to learn online. You need to make that an easy process and something that they can easily understand, whether you give them a checklist or a check sheet, or you give them direction or whatever it is. But you need to make that easy for students, because they already feel kind of alienated at times from the group when it comes to a regular classroom, and then online, that's just even more for them to feel uncomfortable about. And then, like I said, on the teacher perspective, like I just said earlier, and then to build off that, I put get to learn your students' culture. As a teacher, it's important that you understand the kids that are coming to your class, and especially with the ELL students, you need to understand their culture and what their family's like, because they have a lot to offer, and I think that's really important. And that is all I have. Thank you.